The wind cut through the broken concrete. Like knives, Leo pulled his knees closer to his chest and tried to make himself smaller against the cold. 14 years old. And he had been living in these abandoned subway tunnels for 8 months. Now, ever since Mom died, ever since the world above decided people like him did not matter anymore. 20 years had passed since the aliens came to Earth. They built their shining towers in the sky and promised humanity a better future, but that future only came for the rich ones, for people who had something to offer the galactic community. Lee had nothing, just a thin wool blanket that smelled like his mother and memories that hurt more than the cold. He wrapped the blanket tighter around his shoulders. The fabric had holes in it now. Mom gave it to him on his 10th birthday, back when they still had an apartment, back when she was still healthy, back when the world made sense. Now it was all he owned in the universe. Strange sounds echoed from deeper in the tunnel. Leo lifted his head and listened. Clicking noises, something whimpering, then a crash like metal hitting stone. His survival instincts screamed at him to stay put. Nothing good lived in the deep tunnels, but curiosity pulled at him. Maybe someone needed help. Maybe it was another kid like him. He stood up slowly. His legs were stiff from sitting in the cold for hours. Leo grabbed the rusty pipe he kept for protection and moved toward the sounds. His bare feet knew every crack in the concrete floor, every piece of broken glass, every safe step in the darkness. The whimpering grew louder. Something was hurt. Something was scared. Leo turned a corner and saw a pile of collapsed ceiling debris. Rebar and concrete chunks blocked most of the passage, but in a gap between the rubble something moved. Leo crept closer. His eyes had adjusted to the darkness. Years ago, street kids learned to see in the shadows, or they did not survive long. What he saw made him freeze. Scales, dark gray scales that seemed to absorb the dim light from his small flashlight. A long neck, a tail trapped under a concrete slab, wings that looked broken and twisted, and eyes, intelligent eyes that looked right at him with fear and pain. A dragon, a baby dragon, a Drari hatchling. Leo had seen them on the news screens and shop windows. The Drari were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Their adults could tear through spaceship holes with their claws. They breathed plasma hot enough to melt steel. Governments paid bounties for any information about them. Criminal gangs would kill for a chance to capture one. This hatchling was dying. Leo could see that clearly. Its scales had no shine. Its breathing came in short gasps. The wing bent at a wrong angle. Blood dried on its side where the rubble had cut it. Worst of all, the creature was shaking, shivering in the cold, just like Leo had been moments ago. Their eyes met again. The hatchling made a sound, not a roar or a growl, a whimper, a plea, the same sound Leo had made when Mom was dying and no one would help, when the hospital turned them away because they had no money, when the world looked at them and saw nothing worth saving. Leo knew what he should do: walk away, report it to the authorities, and maybe get a reward. Use that reward to buy food and a real shelter, survive another month, another year. That was the smart choice, the logical choice, the choice everyone else would make. Instead, Leo set down his pipe and approached the trapped hatchling. It tried to pull back, but could not move. The concrete had it pinned. Leo spoke softly, like he used to talk to stray cats, gentle words, calm Tones, he reached out slowly and touched. The scales, they were ice cold. Hatchling flinched but did not snap at him. Leo worked carefully. He was small, but he knew leverage. Street kids learned physics through survival. He found a piece of rebar and used it as a lever. Pushed, pulled, shifted the concrete inch by inch. His muscles screamed, his hands bled, but the weight moved. The hatchling pulled its tail free. It stumbled and nearly fell. Leo caught it. The creature was heavier than it looked, but he managed to keep it upright. They stared at each other, boy and dragon, both abandoned by their worlds, both struggling to survive in the forgotten places. Leo made his decision. He unwrapped the blanket from his shoulders. The cold hit him immediately. Winter nights in the tunnels could kill. He had no coat, no other covering. This blanket was the only thing keeping him alive. But the hatchling was shaking harder now. Its eyes were starting to glaze over. He wrapped the blanket around the dragon, tucked it carefully around the broken wing and the wounded side. The hatchling looked at him with confusion, like it could not understand why this human would give up warmth. Leo smiled. It was a sad smile, but a real one. Mom always said we protect those who cannot protect themselves, he whispered, even when it costs us everything. The hatchling's shaking slowed a little. Leo reached into his pocket and pulled out the last of his food, 3 protein bars he had been saving for tomorrow. He unwrapped one and broke off pieces, held them out. Hatchling sniffed cautiously, then ate from his hand. Leo knew he had just made himself a target. Every authority and criminal in the sector would hunt for this creature. Anyone who saw him with it would either turn him in or kill him. For the prize, he had given up his only warmth and his last food to something that could bring nothing but danger. But as the hatchling curled closer to him and made a soft rumbling sound, Leo felt something he had not felt in 8 months. Purpose, connection, hope. He gathered the small dragon into his arms and headed deeper into the tunnels, toward hiding places no one else knew, toward whatever came next. Together 3 days had passed since Leo found the creature he now called Ash. The name came from the color of its scales, dark like burned wood. The hatchling had grown stronger, not much but enough to lift its head when Leo returned each evening, enough to make small chirping sounds when it heard his footsteps. Leo's hiding spot was deep in the abandoned maintenance section. Water dripped from old pipes. Rats scurried in the corners, but it was warm here. The old heating system still pumped hot water through some of the walls. Leo had made a nest from cardboard and newspapers. Ash slept there during the day while Leo went up to scavenge. Scavenging had become harder. Leo needed more food now. He ate less so Ash could eat more. His stomach cramped with hunger, but watching the hatchling gain strength made it worth the pain. The broken wing still hung wrong, but the cuts on its side had closed. The scales were starting to shine a little. Tiny flecks of blue appeared among the gray. When light hit them right, they learned to communicate. Ash could not speak, but it understood. When Leo said, "Stay quiet," the hatchling would press itself flat and hold still. When he said, "Eat," Ash would take food gently from his hands. The dragon's ears moved too. Show emotion. Forward meant curious. Back meant scared. Flat against its head meant danger nearby. Leo learned Ash's body language too. Slow till swish meant content. A fast one meant alert. When the hatchling scales rippled with color changes. Something had startled it. They were building their own language, their own way of being together, but the world above was closing in. Leo heard it first from other street kids, whispers in the dark, stories passing from mouth to mouth. Dreary ships were orbiting Earth, big ones, warships. They were searching for something. Someone said they heard broadcasts in alien languages, threats, promises, demands. Then he saw the posters printed on real paper and plastered everywhere, a crude drawing of a dragon hatchling, words, multiple languages, reward for safe return, destruction for harm. The numbers made Leo's head spin. Enough money to buy a house, a car, a life. Ruth found him staring at one of the posters. She was an old woman who lived in the tunnels too, used to be teacher before the economy collapsed. She still had kind eyes even though life had been cruel to her. You found it, didn't you? She said, not a question. A statement. Leo's heart hammered. He almost ran, but Ruth put a gentle hand on his arm. I won't tell, she promised. But boy, you need to understand what you're dealing with. Those dragons, they're not like other aliens. They value loyalty more than anything. They're warriors, hunters. They don't trust outsiders. Ash trusts me, Leo said quietly. Ruth smiled sadly. That might be the problem. Dreary hatchlings bond to their first protector. Once bonded, they can't be separated without trauma. You might have saved that creature's life, but you've also tied yourself to it forever. The adult dragons will have to deal with that, and they might not like it. Leo thought about this as he hurried back to the tunnels that night. He had stolen medical supplies from a veterinary clinic, protein supplements, bandages, antiseptic. The alarm had gone off and he had barely escaped. Security cameras had caught his face. Now he was wanted for theft too. It did not matter. Ash needed the medicine, but when he turned into his hidden section, 3 men blocked the path. Bounty hunters. Leo recognized the type. Weapons on their belts, scanners in their hands, cold eyes that saw people as profit. Heard something interesting. The lead hunter said he was tall with scars on his face. Heard a street rat has been stealing special food, medical supplies, the kind you'd need for an exotic pet, or maybe a baby dragon. Leo backed up. The hunters spread out to surround him. His heart raced. If they found Ash, the hatchling would be taken or killed. Either way, Leo would lose his friend, his family, the only thing in the world that needed him. Don't know what you're talking about, Leo lied. Sure you don't. But we're going to search anyway. And when we find that lizard, you'll wish you'd cooperated. They moved forward. Leo ran not away from Ash, but toward the hiding spot. He had to warn the hatchling, had to protect it somehow. The hunters chased him through the tunnels. Their boots pounded on concrete. Their lights swept the darkness. Leo burst into his nest area. Ash looked up from sleep, saw his fear. The hatchling stood immediately, scales rippled with alarm colors, ears pinned back, tail rigid. The hunters crashed in behind Leo, saw the dragon raised their weapons, stun guns, net launchers, tools meant to capture, not kill. The reward was only for a living specimen. Well, the lead hunter grinned. Payday. Ash moved faster than Leo expected. The hatchling put itself between the boy and the men, opened its mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then heat, intense heat that made the air shimmer. A burst of superheated air shot from Ash's throat. not plasma yet. Not the full breath weapon of an adult. Dragon but enough, the hunters stumbled. Back their equipment sparked in. Malfunctioned, the heat had fried the electronics, the lead hunter cursed and grabbed for a backup weapon, a real gun. Bullets instead of stun charges. Leo did not think, he threw himself in front of Ash, spread his arms wide, made himself the bigger target. You want the dragon, you go through me, he said. His voice shook but his feet stayed planted. The hunters stared at him. This skinny kid in rags protecting a creature worth millions, this stupid boy. Choosing death over profit, they could shoot him, should shoot him. Nothing stopped them except the law, and the law barely existed down here, but Ash's second breath attack made them chain their minds. The hatchling unleashed another wave of heat. This time it caught the ceiling, metal groaned. Pipe burst, boiling water sprayed. Everywhere the hunters ran, Leo grabbed Ash and ran too, ran deeper into the tunnels, ran to places even he rarely went. Behind them the ceiling collapsed, tons of concrete sealed the passage, trapped but safe for now. 1 week, 7 days since the first night. Ash had doubled in size. The hatchling now stood as tall as Leo's waist and weighed as much as a large dog. The wings had healed wrong, crooked and scarred, but they could fold properly now. The scales had turned a beautiful deep charcoal with veins of electric blue that pulsed when Ash got excited or scared. Leo's situation had become desperate. Every hideout he knew was being searched. The entire underground network buzzed with news. The Drachnari warship in orbit had issued an ultimatum. Every screen in the city showed the broadcast. A massive dragon in black armor spoke in broken human language. Return hatchling unharmed. Receive reward and safety. Harm hatchling. Face orbital bombardment. You have 3 days. The dragon in the broadcast had scars across her face. Her voice was like grinding metal. Her eyes promised death. Commander Scar, the news called her a veteran of 100 battles, not someone who made empty threats. 3 days, that was yesterday. Now Leo had 2 days left. The homeless community had split. Half wanted Leo gone, wanted him to turn in the dragon and stop bringing danger to everyone. The other half whispered that he was brave, that he showed more heart than anyone in the towers above, but whispers did not feed him, did not keep him safe, did not solve his problem. Ruth found him in a new hiding spot near the old water treatment plant. She brought food, real food, bread and cheese and dried meat. Leo wanted to refuse. Pride made his jaw tight, but Ash was hungry and Leo's pride mattered less than the hatchling's health. You can't run forever, Ruth said as she watched him feed Ash. That dragon is getting bigger every day. Soon you won't be able to hide it at all. I know, Leo admitted. His voice was tired. He had not slept more than a few hours in days. Always moving, always watching, always listening for pursuit. The dragons will find you when they do. What then? Leo stroked Ash's head. The hatchling rumbled with contentment and leaned into his touch. They had grown so close. Ash followed him everywhere now, slept curled around him at night, protected him from threats, trusted him completely. Then I asked them to let Ash choose. Leo said, dragons are supposed to be smart, right? If Ash wants to go with them, I'll let go, but if Ash wants to stay with me, they should respect that. Ruth shook her head. Boy, the galaxy doesn't work that way. Species don't mix. especially not predator species like the Drari. They'll take that dragon and you'll be lucky if they just memory wipe it. Unlucky if they decide you contaminated their young. She was right. And Leo knew it, but what choice did he have? He saved Ash because it was the right thing to do, because leaving a creature to die in the cold was wrong. Because his mother raised him to care about others even when no one cared about him. He could not regret that. Would not regret it even if it cost him everything. That night, corporate security forces swept the tunnels with thermal scanners, military-grade equipment. They found Leo's heat signature and Ash's bigger one, tracked them to their hiding spot in the maintenance section, surrounded them with armed soldiers in body armor. The lead officer wore a fancy uniform, clean and pressed. He looked at Leo like he was garbage that needed removing. Kid, this is over. Hand over the dragon, and we'll go easy on you. Rehabilitation program instead of jail, fresh start. All you have to do is walk away. Ash growled, a real growl now, not the whimpers of a week ago. The hatchling's throat glowed from inside, orange and red light between the scales. The breath weapon was getting stronger, hot enough to burn, maybe hot enough to kill. Ash stays with me, Leo said. He stood in front of the dragon, small and weak and completely outmatched but stubborn. His mother used to say he was the most stubborn child in the city. It's not a pet, it's a weapon, a dangerous alien that will grow up to destroy ships and kill people. We're confiscating it for everyone's safety. Liar, Leopat, you want the reward. You want to look like heroes. You don't care about Ash at all. The soldiers moved in. Ash unleashed a breath attack that sent two of them stumbling back with burned armor, but there were too many. Net guns fired, electric nets designed to stun. One caught Ash around the wings. Hatchling roared and thrashed. Another net hit, then another. The dragon went down. Leo screamed and rushed forward. Soldier grabbed him, held him back. He kicked and fought, but a 14-year-old street kid could not break a trained soldier's grip. They were loading Ash into a transport cage. The hatchlings' eyes found Leo's, terrified, betrayed, calling for help. Something in Leo broke, not his body but something deeper, the part that had stayed strong through his mother's death, through months of cold and hunger, through every hardship the world threw at him. He stopped fighting, went limp. The soldier loosened his grip slightly. Leo bit down on the man's hand, hard, drew blood. The soldier cursed and let go. Leo ran to the cage, grabbed the bars. Ash pressed against them from inside. Their hands and claws touched. Leo felt electricity run through him. Real electricity from the security systems, but also something else. Something that felt like lightning in his soul. Then he was flying backward. Stun blast hit his chest. The world went fuzzy. Sounds became distant. He saw the transport lift off, saw Ash's face in the cage window, saw the hatchlings' mouth open in a silent scream. Then darkness. When Leo woke up, Ruth was there. Her face was wet with tears. She held his hand. They took Ash, he asked, already knowing the answer. Child, something else happened. That dragon, it did something when you touched it, used some kind of emergency signal. The Drari warship detected it. They're coming. They'll be here within the hour. Leo closed his eyes, let the tears come. He had failed, lost his only friend, and now the dragons would arrive to find their precious hatchling in a cage, traumatized and scared. They would Blame him, blame all humans, the orbital bombardment might actually happen. He had tried to do the right thing, tried to save a life, and it had led to this total disaster. The Drari landing craft descended like a falling meteor. Leo saw it through the broken ceiling of the maintenance building where Ruth had dragged him. His chest still hurt from the stun blast. His heart hurt worse knowing Ash was somewhere in corporate custody, caged. Alone, scared, the craft touched down. The ruins above the tunnels, its landing. Jets melted concrete and turned sand to glass. The cargo ramp lowered in hell. Walked out 7 adult Drari warriors. In full combat armor, each one stood 12 feet tall. Their scales were like tank plating, claws like sword blades, eyes that glowed with inner fire. They moved with predator grace, every step deliberate, every movement efficient. Built for war, born for killing. Commander Scar led them. She was bigger than the others, more scars, older, deadlier. She carried no visible weapons because she did not need any. Her entire body was a weapon. Behind her came warriors with names Leo would learn later, fighters who had survived battles that destroyed planets, the underground population scattered, people who had lived through alien invasions and economic collapse ran from these creatures like mice from eagles. Only Ruth stayed. She grabbed Leo's arm. We need to hide you, she hissed. No, Leo said. He stood up on shaking legs. I need to tell them what happened, where Ash is. They need to know humans took their hatchling. They'll kill you, maybe, but at least Ash will be saved. That's what matters. Ruth stared at him, this skinny boy in rags who had nothing and no one who should be running for his life. Instead, he was walking towards 7 dragons who could tear him apart without effort. She had seen brave people in her life, soldiers, heroes, but this was different. This was purer, a child who loved a creature more than he loved survival. She followed him. If he was going to die, he would not die alone. Leo climbed out of the tunnels, stepped into the open where the dragons could see him. His legs trembled, his breath came short, every instinct screamed to hide. But he raised his hands and spoke clearly. I know where your hatchling is. 7 pairs of glowing eyes focused on him. The pressure of their attention felt physical, like gravity increased. Like the air got heavier, Scar moved forward. Her claws dug trenches in the concrete. She lowered her massive head until her face was level with Leo's. Her breath smelled like burning metal. Her teeth were the size of Leo's fingers. You are the human who took our young, she said. Not a question. Her voice resonated in his bones. I saved your young, Leo corrected. He forced his voice steady, found it dying in the tunnels, trapped under rubble, freezing, starving. I gave it my blanket, my food, protected it for 7 days. Then corporate soldiers took it, put it in a cage. I tried to stop them, but I'm just a kid. Scar's eyes narrowed. You expect mercy. For this, you contaminated a hatchling, bonded it to prey species, violated natural order. I saved a life, Leo repeated. Your hatchling was dead. Without help, I gave that help. If that's wrong in your culture, then your culture is broken. One of the warriors growled, moved forward with claws extended. Scar raised a hand. The warrior stopped immediately. The commander studied Leo for a long moment. Really looked at him, saw the too thin frame, the ragged clothes, the bare feet, the bruises and scars, the eyes that had seen too much suffering. You are young yourself, Scar observed. Where is your pack, your family dead? Just me now, yet you gave your resources. To our hatchling, resources you needed. To survive, why? Leo met her burning gaze because it needed them more than me, because I couldn't walk away from something dying, because my mom taught me that's what makes us human, we care. Even when it hurts, even when it costs. Everything we care. Scar made a sound. A rumble deep in her chest, the other warriors shifted. Leo could not read their body language, did not know if he was about to die, but he stood straight. If these were his last moments, he would face them with dignity. Show us where they took our young, Scar commanded. Leo nodded, started walking. The dragons followed, people hiding in buildings watched through cracked windows, watched a homeless boy lead 7 monsters through the ruins, toward the corporate zone, toward the gleaming towers where the rich lived, where people like Leo were not allowed. Security drones spotted them. Immediately, alarms sounded, corporate guards scrambled, but nobody tried to stop them. Nobody was stupid enough to fight 7 adult Drari warriors. The dragons walked through barriers like they were paper, smashed through gates, ignored all attempts at communication. Leo led them to the corporate science facility. He knew this building had stolen from their supply depot before. He pointed to the upper floors. They'll have Ash in the xenobiology labs, top floor, maximum security. Scar looked at the building, 20 stories of reinforced concrete and steel guard posts at every entrance, military raid defenses. She looked back at Leo. You will come with us if you speak truth. You will be rewarded if you lie. You will burn. They entered together. Guards tried to stop them. Scar walked through them, not violently, just unstoppable, like a mountain moving. Her warriors spread out, searched the facility room by room, found human prisoners in some labs, illegal experiments, suffering aliens used for research. The dragons freed them all. Not gently, but efficiently. Leo climbed the stairs ahead of them. His legs burned, his chest ached, but he pushed forward, had to reach Ash. Had to see if the hatchling was okay. Behind him, Scar's heavy footsteps shook the building. Top floor, maximum security wing, reinforced doors with electronic locks. Scar tore one off its hinges like cardboard. Inside, cages, dozens of them, filled with creatures that should never be imprisoned. In the largest cage at the back, Ash, the hatchling's eyes were closed, sedated, a dozen sensor cables attached to its body, humans in lab coats standing around taking readings. They turned as the door crashed open. Saw the dragons, saw their death walking toward them, ran. Leo ran to Ash's cage, grabbed the bars. The hatchling's eyes opened slowly, unfocused, drugged, then recognition, then joy so pure it hurt to see. Ash struggled against the cables, tried to reach Leo, made desperate sounds. I'm here, Leo whispered, I'm here. You're safe now. Scar melted through the cage bars with a controlled breath. Weapon precise, surgical. The metal glowed and dripped away. Ash stumbled forward into Leo's arms. The hatchling wrapped its wings around the boy, trembled, made sounds that Leo had never heard before. Relief and fear and love, all mixed together. The commander watched them, saw how they held each other, how the hatchling refused to let go, even as her warriors approached. How Leo checked every inch of Ash for injuries with gentle hands. She saw the bond real and deep and absolutely against everything she knew about proper species separation. But she also saw something else. Something her culture valued above all. Things except combat prowess, she saw. Loyalty, true loyalty. The kind that risked everything, the kind that could not be faked or forced, the kind that made warriors into legends. Scar made a decision that would change everything. She looked at Leo holding the sedated hatchling and spoke words that confused her own warriors. Bring them both to the ship. One warrior, a younger male named Frost, objected. Commander, protocol demands we separate them. The human has contaminated the young. Council law requires memory suppression and disposal of contamination source. Disposal, such a clean word for murder. Leo understood perfectly. He held Ash tighter. Scar's eyes flashed. I am aware of protocol. I'm also aware that this hatchling used an emergency signal to call us. It bonded to this human deeply, enough to risk revealing our location to save him. That indicates something. Council needs to examine. We bring them. Both the warriors obeyed. They always obeyed Scar. She had earned their loyalty through blood and battle. If she said bring the human, they would bring the human, even if they disagreed. Leo found himself carried onto a Drari landing craft. Ruth tried to follow, but the warriors stopped her. She called out to Leo, promised she would tell everyone what happened, promised his story would not be forgotten. Then the ramp closed, and Leo was alone with 7 dragons and Ash. The flight to the warship took minutes. The craft docked with a massive vessel that blocked out the sun. Leo had never been in space before, never thought he would be. Street kids did not get to see the stars, but now he floated through corridors that smelled like hot metal and something spicy he could not name. Drari scent, dragon musk pack. Smell. They brought him to a medical bay, put Ash on a table that adjusted automatically to the hatchling size. Medical drone scanned every inch. Dragon medic examined the wing that had healed crooked, checked the old injuries, looked at teeth and claws and scale patterns, muttered in the dragon language, sounded impressed, surprised. Leo stood nearby. Guards watched him, but did not restrain him. Ash kept trying to look at him to make sure he was still there. Leo smiled each time, and Ash would settle down. The medic noticed this, made notes on a holographic display. Scar entered after the examination finished. She looked at the reports with unreadable eyes. Hatchling should be dead, she said. Multiple lethal injuries, hypothermia, malnutrition, yet it thrives. Wing healed incorrectly but functional. Overall health acceptable. Whoever provided care did so with limited resources but maximum effort. She looked at Leo. You did this with nothing, no knowledge of our species, no proper supplies, no support, just determination and love. Leo said quietly, I love Ash. Is that allowed in your protocol? Scar made that rumbling sound again. One Leo could not interpret. She gestured and guards escorted him to a holding cell, clean, temperature controlled, a bed that was too large but comfortable, food and water better than anywhere Leo had lived in months. But it was still a cell, still a cage, just nicer than the ones below. Hours passed, maybe days. Time felt strange on the ship. No sun, no moon. Just artificial lighting that dimmed and brightened on some schedule Leo did not understand. He slept, ate the food they brought, wondered if Ash was okay. Wondered if he would ever see the hatchling again. Then Scar returned. She brought 2 warriors. They escorted Leo To a large chamber training room maybe. Or arena, the space was big enough for dragons to fight in. Ash was there. The hatchling saw Leo and made happy. Sounds tried to run to him, but warriors held it back gently. The council demands answers, Scar said. They want to know if human contamination can be removed, if hatchling can be salvaged, but I told them something else. I told them you might be worth testing. Testing? Leo's mouth went dry. Drawery. Value strength, combat prowess, but also loyalty, honor, pack bonds. You demonstrated all these. I propose to counsel that you earn your right to remain with our young. 3 trials. Drawery tradition. Pass them and you have place in pack. Fail and you return to Earth alive but alone. Leo looked at Ash. The hatchling looked back. Their eyes met in understanding. Pass between them. This was the only chance, the only way forward. What are the trials? Leo asked. First trial, pain. Tolerance. We are warriors. We endure. You must prove you can endure. They brought out tools, marking tools for ritual scarring. Leo had seen pictures. Drawery earned marks for achievements, for surviving battles, for reaching adulthood. The marks were burned into scales, permanent, painful, necessary. But Leo did not have scales. He had skin, soft human skin that scarred easily and hurt more. The dragon performing the ritual looked uncomfortable, but Scar nodded and the process began. Fire-controlled fire touching his shoulder, his arm, his chest, creating patterns, creating marks that would identify him as someone who had been tested. Leo bit down on a cloth, refused to scream, refused to cry. Sweat poured off him. His vision went white with pain, but he stayed still, stayed silent. Let them finish. Ash made distressed sounds, wanted to help, but warriors held the hatchling back. Explained this was necessary, this was tradition. When it ended, Leo had burns across his upper body, marks that would scar, marks that meant something to dragons, even if humans did not understand. First trial passed, Scar announced. Her warriors looked impressed. Frost, the young one who had objected before, nodded with respect. Second trial, resource sharing. Prove you are not parasite. Prove you give as much as you take. They brought food, water, supplies, set them in front of Leo. Told him he could keep everything or share with the pack. Simple choice. Obvious choice for Leo. He had shared his last food with Ash that first night. Sharing now was natural. He distributed everything, gave food to each warrior, gave water to the medic, kept nothing for himself except enough to survive. The dragons accepted the offerings, ate them. Some looked surprised, others nodded as if confirming something they suspected. Second trial passed, Scar said. Third trial is most important. Loyalty proof. You say you love our young, but words are easy. Actions matter. We offer you transport to Earth, supplies, money, safety, new life. All you must do is leave now, walk away, never contact hatchling again. Choose. Leo's heart stopped. This was the real test, the one that mattered. He could have everything he lost, food, shelter, security. All he had to do was abandon Ash, leave behind the creature he saved, pretend the bond never happened. He looked at Ash. The hatchling was watching him, waiting, trusting, hoping. Those eyes held everything. Fear that Leo would leave, hope that he would stay, love that was pure and unconditional. Leo smiled, walked past Scar, past the warriors, past the exit to freedom. walked straight to Ash and wrapped his arms around the dragon's neck. I don't abandon family, he said clearly. Never have, never will. Ash is my family. That's worth more than any reward you could offer. Ash rumbled and wrapped wings around him. They stood together, boy and dragon, choosing each other over everything else. The warriors looked at each other. Even Frost seemed moved. Scar's expression softened slightly. Third trial passed, she said quietly. Human Leo has earned temporary place in Pack. Council will review, but I will recommend acceptance. 6 months passed aboard the warship. 6 months of transformation. Leo learned the Drar language, not just words, but the growls and rumbles that carried meaning. He learned their customs, how to show respect, how to challenge, how to exist in a warrior culture that valued strength but also recognized different kinds of power. He trained his body, ate proper meals for the first time in years, grew stronger, taller. The scars from his trial had healed into permanent marks. Other dragons recognized them, knew what they meant, gave him space and respect he had never known as a street kid. But most importantly, he stayed with Ash. Hatchling grew rapidly, now the size of a small horse. The crooked wing had been surgically corrected by Drari doctors. Ash could fly now, short distances at first, then longer. The breath weapon had developed fully, plasma hot enough to cut through bulkheads, controlled enough to light a candle without burning it. They were bonded, truly bonded. The Drari had a word for it, Kethil's soul connection, warriors who fought together so long they moved as one. It was rare, even among dragons. Between a human and a Drari, it was unprecedented. The council studied them, watched them, debated their existence. Scar became something like a mentor to Leo. She taught him strategy, combat, philosophy, the history of her people, their wars, their values, their fears. In return, Leo taught her about humans, about compassion that extended beyond Pack, about finding strength in vulnerability, about hope even darkness. Your species is strange, she said one day during training. You should be prey. Small, weak, no natural weapons, but you survive, you adapt, you find ways to win that we never consider. We care, Leo said simply, about each other, about strangers, sometimes even about enemies. It makes us vulnerable, but it also makes us strong in different ways. Scar considered this caring for enemies is foolish, is it? Ash could have been your enemy, instead Ash's family. Because someone cared. The commander had no answer to that, but Leo saw her thinking, saw the idea taking root. The council's decision came through official channels, a holographic message broadcast to the entire ship. Elder dragons with ancient scales and wise eyes spoke in formal tones. They had debated for months, consulted histories, examined precedents, analyzed the bond between Leo and Ash from every angle. Their verdict, conditional acceptance. Leo could remain with the pack, could stay bonded to Ash, but he must fully integrate into Drari culture, must accept all responsibilities, must prove his value beyond just caring for one Hatchling. If he agreed, he would be the first non-Drari ever accepted into a warrior clan. If he refused, he would return to Earth with honor and resources, but alone. Leo agreed immediately, had already made his choice 6 months ago in that cold tunnel. Everything since had just been confirmation. The integration ceremony was formal. Ancient warriors lined up in full armor. Scar stood at the center. Leo knelt before her, and she placed her claws on his shoulders, spoke words in Old Drari that the translation software did not catch, but Leo felt their weight there. Meaning, he was packed now, protected. And protector, part of something larger than himself. Ash stood beside him. Throughout, the hatchling had grown. Beautiful, scales like polished obsidian, with veins of electric blue that pulsed. With life, wings that could spread 20 ft, eyes that glowed with intelligence and fierce love. When the ceremony ended, Ash roared, a sound that shook the ship, a sound of joy and triumph. The council issued another announcement, one that spread through galactic channels, one that made news across hundreds of worlds. The Drakari were opening limited integration programs with humans, not full acceptance, not yet, but observation, study, testing whether human traits could complement Drari strength, whether compassion and courage could coexist. It started small. Human diplomats visiting Drari ships, cultural exchanges, joint training exercises. Leo became a bridge, living proof that the impossible could happen, that bonds could form across species, that caring was not weakness but a different kind of power. Scar's warship received orders to return to Earth, to the sector where Leo had lived. He stood on the observation deck as the planet grew larger. Ash stood beside him, massive, now nearly adult-sized, but still his friend, still his family. Nervous, Ash asked. The hatchling could speak now. Not perfectly. Drari vocal cords were not made for human languages, but well enough to be understood. A little, Leo admitted. Last time I was there, I was nobody, a street kid everyone ignored. Now I'm coming back as part of a dragon warrior clan. It's strange. You were always somebody, Ash said firmly. You were a person who saved me, who gave me warmth when you had none, who chose me over safety. That's more than most beings ever are. The ship landed in the same ruins where Scar had first touched down, but this time people gathered, news crews, government officials, and hiding in the back, familiar faces, other street kids, homeless people Leo had known. Ruth standing in front, crying with joy. Leo walked down the ramp with Scar and Ash. The difference was stunning. 6 months ago he had been a skinny, desperate boy in rags. Now he wore Drakari clothing, carried himself with confidence, had scars that marked him as tested and accepted, but his eyes were still kind, still held that compassion that made him help a dying creature in a tunnel. Ruth pushed through the crowd, hugged him hard. I told everyone, she said, told them what you did. You're a hero now. They're building shelters for the homeless, creating programs. Your story changed minds, changed laws, changed everything. Leo smiled but shook his head. I'm not a hero. I just couldn't walk away from something that needed help. That's not heroic, that's just human. Scar overheard, made her rumbling sound. Perhaps that is what makes humans special. You think basic compassion is ordinary. We think it is extraordinary. Both views have truth. The media wanted interviews, the government wanted meetings, but Leo asked for one thing. First, he wanted to visit the tunnel, the place where it all started, where he had wrapped his only blanket around a dying hatchling and changed his entire life. They went there together. Leo, Ash, Scar, Ruth stood in the cold darkness where the rubble had trapped a creature who should have died, should have been forgotten. Instead, that creature had become a bridge between Species had proven that bonds could form in the most unlikely places. What now? Ruth asked. Will you stay on Earth? Leo looked at Ash. The dragon looked back, understanding past. Between them, without words, the bond was complete, total, unbreakable. No, Leo said. My place is with the pack. Now with Ash out there in the galaxy. But we'll visit often and we'll bring others, show them what's possible, show them that different kinds of strength can work together, that caring isn't weakness, that compassion can change everything. He knelt and touched the ground where he had first found Ash, where his old blanket had been, where he had made a choice that cost him everything he owned but gave him everything that mattered. I was cold and alone, he said quietly, had nothing but one blanket and a few scraps of food, gave them away to save a stranger, lost everything but gained a family, gained a purpose, gained a place in the universe. That's the real human strength. We can lose everything and still find reasons to care, still find ways to help, still find hope in the darkest places. Ash rumbled in agreement. Scar nodded. With respect, Ruth wiped tears from her eyes, and deep in the tunnels, other homeless people who had been listening emerged from the shadows, looked at Leo with new understanding, with hope of their own. One cold night, one desperate choice, one act of compassion, that was all it took to change everything, to prove that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or violence, but the simple willingness to care, to protect those who could not protect themselves, to give warmth even when freezing, to share food even when starving, to love even when it costs everything. That was what saved Leo, what saved Ash, what opened doors between species, what started changing the galaxy one bond at a time. All because a homeless human boy gave his last comfort and saved a dragon. Hatchling,